My name is Scottie Smith II. In short, I'm a real estate enthusiast, land lover, I'm a deal maker, unicorn chaser, and I'm a photographer on the side through my iPhone. So you guys can follow me on Instagram. I like to take nice photos every now and again. And you'll see that as my bio on there as well, just Scottie L. Smith. If you got your phones out, just go ahead and follow me. But anyway, so in 2015, I wrote a book called From Decision to Close, a 40-step, no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point guide to buying a home. And in short, that's what it is. It's 40 simple steps that I feel like we have to follow before, during, and after in order to be a successful homeowner. And it was a pretty successful book, still is pretty successful. A lot of people have downloaded it. At one point it debuted at number 2 on Amazon's reading list for home buying. So it was a really good book. But it's more traditional. It's more traditional. It tells you, kind of step by step. It breaks it down and makes it plain, and it makes it easy. In 2015, we're in a different time than we are right now. And I know you're probably thinking and hearing, hey, it was only 2 years ago. But listen, things have changed. We've seen, 2, almost 3 rate hikes, in the last 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
So what that tells us is we're in a different lending kind of climate, and so we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what's going on. Since 2011, I've been saying this market that we're in, that we're going to grow into, is going to be, in essence, it's going to look a lot like early 2000s, right? Anybody remember what happened in the early 2000s? Anybody? Can anybody?
The dot-com bust? Where is it?
Dot-com bust with regards to real estate. Come on, David, I know you've been in equity and we talked about that. But with regards to the real estate and the real estate economy, there was a lot that happened, right? You guys agree with that? Okay. There was a lot that happened. There was, it was the Wild Wild West. And I know this for a fact because I bought my home when I was 19 using my refund money from college. Barely had a job, so it was, if you had a pulse, you had a loan. If you had a loan, you had a house. So, all you needed was, sign and go, right? So if you didn't reap the benefits of, some of those easy lending practices early in, the early 2000s, I'm sorry, but where we are right now is we are in an environment that is about to allow for that to happen again. And so why is this important? When I said to Clifton and the team that we're going to be talking about a new pathway to home ownership, it's not so much as a new pathway, but it's more so of, hey, it's about to happen again. I want you to be able to take advantage of the opportunity, but I want you to be careful. Okay? So those are the 2 words that I want you guys to always remember from this point on. If you're in real estate, if you're a real estate professional, if you're a buyer, if you're a lender, whatever, be careful. And I say that, with as much, as heartfelt as I possibly can. Be careful. Most of us in this room look the same, right? This is the community that they try to go after and be predatory lenders towards. So just be careful. I'm not saying don't take advantage of it. I'm saying be careful, all right? So I'm going to go through probably 12 of these real quick, 12 of these steps, and it's kind of the due diligence part of getting ready, right? So we have a couple people in here who are looking to get into a home, so I want you to kind of write these things. To get the rest of them, you got to come tomorrow. I'm going to give you a little teaser. You got to come tomorrow, But what I'm also going to talk about is just some of the new stuff that you may see again. It may be new to you. But for people who've been in real estate for quite some time, it's not really new, it's just peering its ugly head one more time. I'm gonna show you what's out there and what to expect and how to navigate that properly, okay? All right, so jumping into this, and I'll be remiss if I didn't say I had a couple books up here. They're $7 if you want one afterwards. We got a little PayPal deal set up for you to come grab one, okay? So let's talk about this. So you want to buy a home. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Do you understand the realities of home ownership? And do you really want to know, right? A lot of times people just say, hey, I want to own a home. But they don't really want to know what's, the ins and outs of home ownership. And so in the first chapter of this book, we kind of talk about the due diligence process, right? Getting yourself prepared. In order to do anything in life, I think it's important to be prepared. There's this thing when I was pledging called 12 P's, right? Piss poor preparation promotes piss poor performance promotes pain. If you ain't prepare yourself, you witness a little bit of pain, but even more so in real estate, because real estate, when you go and buy your home, this is one of the largest financial transactions that most people will ever make, right? And so you want to make sure you're doing everything you need to prepare and to avoid as many of these pitfalls as possible. So coming to stuff like this, where we're educating you on what's about to happen and what's going on in the industry and in the market so you can avoid those traps, okay? So the first thing with anything is kind of doing analysis of your current expenses. That's simple. Pretty much create a budget. Understand what's going on with you, right? Understand what you do. Not just from what's on your credit that your lender will see, but what you do on a day-to-day basis. If you like to get your hair, nails, pamper yourself every other weekend, you know that that's a budgetary line item that you don't want to remove. Add that on there, because your lender will tell you, hey, you can afford $350,000, right? But then you can't figure out why you're short on your mortgage every single month when you still have those budgetary items that you haven't taken out. So understand your budget, understand what's going on there, okay? And I said, listen, these first 12, we're gonna move through these fast because I wanna get to the meat of this, okay? All right, excuse me. You wanna compare renting versus buying. That's step 2, all right? $1,200 in rent does not equal $1,200 in mortgage. And here's why. There are tax benefits, equity building, home value appreciation, and resale value of owning a home. If I'm spending $1,200 per month to a landlord, that's about $36,000 that you give to a landlord. Any landlords out there, I'm not down to you because that's just the name of the economy that we're in. But if you, as a consumer, try to compare $1,200 in rent to $1,200 in owning, it does not make sense. You got PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, of which you can write off on your taxes, right? And then there's the principal part of that whole deal, right? You're paying into your principal or paying down your principal or putting equity into your home, right? So essentially, how much your property is worth, less the loan balance equals the amount of equity, right? So as you're paying into your mortgage, that middle variable continues to decrease, right? This value, obviously, we want it to increase. So when it's time to sell, at a minimum, you're going to get some of that back. All right, so kind of jumping into the investment part of it. Naturally, I think I have an investor's mindset because that's how I started in this deal. But I know that most people feel like that first house is going to be your dream house. It's going to have everything that you want and all the bells and whistles and all that stuff, or at least that's what you tell us when we have this sit-down conversation. But the reality is we start talking about, that Moet that you want, but all you have is Keystone budget. It's like, we got to get realistic with you for a second. So consider that first home as an investment. It's a starter home, right? And it's my belief and my theory that the way real estate is set up is to coincide with the progression of life, right? You start a home, it may be you and, another significant other alone, right? First come love, then come marriage, then come baby and a baby carriage. Once you get to that point, you got to expand and maybe consider your second home. And then once you expand again, you get a larger home, right? Don't jump into it and say, I'm gonna get this $500,000 home as my first investment and it's just you. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Obviously, at the end of the day, I'm just an advisor. But, consider it as your first investment. Buy something that's reasonably cost, maybe a duplex, where you live on one side, rent the other side out. Or now they got Airbnb where you can, Airbnb on the weekends. So consider those things when you're looking at the home buying process. And then prepare mentally. Let me tell you this. From a real estate agent standpoint, we'll be honest with each other. Clients kind of stress us out sometimes, right? And it's really the unnecessary stress of them being stressed and, they just kind of putting that stress on us. But really the process is simple. You just have to prepare yourself for the what ifs, right? Let your agent do what they need to do to guide you. Hold their hand. You don't have to stress out about it. This stuff is there's really not a whole bunch of things that can happen. The worst that can happen is the deal falls out. Bam, I ruined the end of the story. That's it. That's the worst that could happen. The deal falls out or you lose your earnest money. You're not gonna die, I promise. It's not one of those things. At the end of the day, just know that the process, there are some steps that you have to take. Trust your realtor, trust your real estate broker, whoever it is, to walk you through it. If you hired them, right? If you hired them, that means you trust them. All right? Okay. Now we're going to get into the lending part, and this is the part where I want you guys to understand. This is where I'm going to take a pause in a minute. So review your credit report. You're going to holler at a lender. They're going to tell you what's on your credit. They're going to tell you how much you can afford based on your credit scores and your DTI. All right? Here's another part. Listen. Income. I have so many people that call me up and say, I want to buy a house, I want to buy some real estate, and then we say, okay, cool, what do you do for work? And they do whatever they do, and then they bring me, their tax returns, and their tax returns have a negative AGI, and I'm like, well, you have no verifiable income. How are we going to, from a lender perspective, how are they going to lend you something with the confidence to know that they're going to get it back if they see that you have negative income? You writing everything off. So make sure that you have some verifiable income somewhere, all right? And earnest money, inspections, appraisal, down payment, closing costs, all those are expenses that come, before you have to get to closing or before you can even get to closing, all right? You're not even gonna see, some of this stuff. You need to have that or access to that somewhere, okay? Make sure this is all credit stuff. Your lender's gonna look at this. All right? Deposits and withdrawals from your bank. I'm going to tell you this. If you're considering buying a home, make sure everything that you deposit into your bank is verifiable, traceable, or can be pointed back to somewhere. Because if you just got a whole bunch of cash payments and it's not traceable, your lender's not going to be able to include that into the loan process. They're going to say, no, this is cash. Where did it come from? Right? You look nice, but are you doing some illegal activities? And so if you have unverifiable cash deposited into your account on a day-to-day basis, no way for them to verify that. Okay? Same thing with withdrawals, right? Make sure that you're able to tell them where things are going. Or make sure you have your money to the side that you're going to use for this home buying process in a separate account. All right? Budget. We're not going to go through that. Everybody looks kind of bright. Budget. All right? Okay. Talk to a mortgage lender to find out what you can afford. Okay? Everything we just talked about up to this point pretty much gets us to this point right here. All right? Why is this important? Honestly, the mortgage folks are the gatekeepers to just about all things real estate. We as realtors kind of quarterback this deal, but the people with the money, unless you're coming in cash, they're pretty much the gatekeepers. And so they're also at the point that they can really shift an entire economy. They can change the perspective of an entire economy I said that twice for a reason. Look what happened in early 2000s. It happened because of predatory lending, right? Predatory lending and just uneducated buyers. People who just wanted a home, but they didn't want to know what it took to become a homeowner and to maintain that house. That is the part that is problematic for us. And that is the part that brings us to what's happening in 2017. It looks just the same, right? It looks just the same as just dressed in a nice, kind of one of those nice tapered off suits, and they just called it something else. But it looks exactly the same, right? So my story, I bought my first house in 2007. I was 19 years old. I was working at a part-time job. I had a pretty decent scholarship money that I took and used as a down payment that I got back at closing. It was the craziest thing. It was. And all I did was say, hey, the lender said, you want a house? I said, yes, I want this house right here. It was $80,000 at the time. I knew I can get, 3 people in there at $450 a month because it was a college town. Why wouldn't I? It just made perfect sense. Okay, well, cool. This is what you need to do. You sure? You want the house? I said, I do. I said, fair enough, let's get to it. So I did all the things on the list, right? And it was what they call now a stated income loan. Every day I get about 5 to 10 emails from new lenders who say, stated income loans are back. Send me your clients. Lowest rates around. Why is that important? Now, if you're a fiscally responsible person, stated income, it could work for you, right? It worked for me. I was 19, I was still green behind the ears. I hadn't even been out the country yet, and I owned a house because of a stated income loan. But I knew what was going on. I had a college town. But unfortunately for some, what happened was just didn't work out for them. Q end of 2007, beginning of 2008, when the market went to crap on us, right? A lot of that stuff played into that. In addition to that, some of the down payment assistance programs that were out there were backwards. They were just, my mother would say they were backwards. And for the purpose of this setting, I'm not going to say that, but they were just backwards. So I go into a house, I need 3.5% down, and I need 3% towards closing, but I don't have it. But I want this house. Lender said, that's okay. I got you. I'm going to give you 3.5% down. I'm just going to wrap it into the loan. You need closing costs? I give you 3% on that too. Now I have a $100,000 house where I'm supposed to have $97,000 as a loan and $3,000 as an equity, and I have a $100,000 house, $3,500 in down payment that's wrapped into that. In addition to that, $3,000 closing cost that's wrapped into that. So I have a $100,000 house with a $106,000 mortgage because it's wrapped in. In what world does that make sense? It's called upside down. It is called upside down. In real estate, the way this thing is designed is not for you to be upside down from the moment that you walk away from the closing table. That's why you have down payments. So you can at least have that amount of equity in your home, right? So early 2000, we had people that were gung-ho on these down payment assistance programs, but were upside down in real estate. It was like they were driving off the car lot with a car. When you buy the car, you immediately lose equity as soon as the first 2 wheels hit the pavement. Same deal. That's not what real estate is designed for. And so what we have now is we have very, very similar products going on. And so at the beginning, I gave you 2 words, buyer beware. Be careful. Be careful. So be careful because those things are back, all right? And so I'm not telling you that to scare you. I'm telling you that to educate you on what could go wrong. I used to be in accounting, right? I was an auditor for a long time. And we used to do these things called walkthroughs. And a part of the walkthrough was what could go wrong. And I guess the lenders really didn't, they didn't have good auditors at that time because somebody didn't put what could go wrong if they continued to do that. I mean, it just didn't make sense. But I'm telling you this so you can understand what could go wrong. But I'm also telling you this so that you understand to take advantage of what's about to come. Listen, this is a prime opportunity to become a real estate investor, buy your first home, do what it is you need to do because the lending requirements are super loose and they're going to continue to be loose, right? I talked to one of our in-house lenders just yesterday. And this is our lender who, I kind of expect for things to be really strict with this bank, right? And she said, oh no. We go down to 600 and we, DTI is this. I said, well, I didn't know that. I said, when did that happen? She said, as soon as Trump got elected. I said, well, dang, you didn't tell nobody. That would have been nice to know. And we go on and have this dialogue and we talk about, hey, this is what's going on. I just, some of this stuff, I want to make sure my clients get a better rate. And I'm like, okay, the difference between 4.25 and 4.2, $10 a month, right? They can't go to Starbucks 2 times out of the month. I'm sure that won't hurt them. But it's like they're saying, here, come get this money, because eventually we know what's about to happen. So be careful is what I'm saying. So down payment assistance program, if you are a homeowner or even if you're a realtor, a real estate professional, I want you to write some of this stuff down so that you can share with your clients, right? So that you can share with your clients some of the programs that are rolling back out. So I'm gonna start with this one. I'm sure most of you guys know about the SET program. The SET program is a grant down payment assistance program that ensures that the buyer gets up to 5% towards your down payment and closing costs. Okay? Now, remember I just mentioned to you down payment assistance where at that point, early 2000s, what they did was they wrapped everything together and said, pay us back over a certain period of time. Hopefully your property appreciates over this number. With this down payment assistance program, that 5% is in the form of a grant. So you don't ever have to pay it back. And so it actually pays down, it pays down your mortgage balance. Whereas before, you didn't get that. There are some income restrictions. I think the highest you can make is about $82,000 per year on that. Some lenders may have similar programs that allow for a higher income, but the basis of that one is roughly about $82,000 a year, okay? Write that down. So that's a 5% grant. So that kind of covers, if you're doing an FHA loan, that covers your 3.5% down plus about 1.5 points of closing costs. You may have to bring a little bit of money to the table, but that's good, right? I think we had some clients. I had a client that actually, what was it? $127 she brought to the table? $137, and she did the SET program or a different bond program. Yeah, so she brought $127 to the table. So still has that equity through the grant program, right? So over time, what should be expected is that, she should be able to sell that property and still make a profit because at the beginning of it, she got 3.5% of free money, okay? This stuff isn't really new. It's just a new way of looking at it. It's about perspective, okay? All right, so there's an additional mortgage program that I just got, and I've checked it out for about 2 weeks. And it's a 1% down mortgage. 1% down. 1% down. So if you got a $100,000 home, 1%, right? 1%, it's $1,000. Is that $1,000? That's $1,000, right? Yeah, $1,000. And then you get 2% in the form of a grant. So that FHA requirements of 3.5%, it's still there, but you got to bring 1% to the table. But again, you're bringing money to the table, and it's all about making sure you secure your investment. And if you don't, it'll look so similar to what happened in the 80s, what happened in the early 2000s. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful. Take advantage of this, but be careful, okay?
What's the name
I will send it to you. I just got the email that said 1% down. I said, wait a minute. This is, let me call this guy up. And it was a pretty decent program. Very similar to what was going on, but the fact that they give you the 2% grant that covers your down payment or that helps with the down payment, you're okay. So it's not wrapping. Anytime a lender says we're going to wrap this into this, run far. You understand? Unless there's a $40,000 in equity or something like that, you got a little room to play with. There are certain cases where, where you can do that. But for the majority, especially with us being in the seller's market and home prices increasing at such a rapid pace, you're not going to see a whole bunch of deals out there that are on the retail market for you to be able to do that, okay?
What was the name of that first program?
It's called the SET, S-E-T-H. All right? Then a couple of programs that I'm actually kind of falling in love with that I think are magnificent, right? Because everybody knows anybody not from Scottie Smith & Associates or hasn't been associated with Scottie Smith & Associates at some point. What is the credit requirement for FHA? Now, bingo, 580. All right, that's a credit requirement for FHA.
Is that pretty low? Can that be considered pretty low?
Woo! Talk to me. Talk to me. Okay. It is though. It is pretty. It's very low.
Not ideal.
It's what you call, what the banks consider subprime. Does that word seem familiar to anybody? Right? Okay. Subprime. That's what got us in trouble. Right? You have people who don't necessarily need to be in the house financially. They can't necessarily, their credit statement says that they can't afford a home or they can't maintain a home, right? But your spending habits say you can, right? Right? If for whatever reason, you had some bumps and bruises in the past and these credit bureaus are doing their thing, changing up their algorithm every dang on year to where, you trying to play catch up, but still sitting at that 580, 585, right? But you're paying $1,500 a month in a mortgage or in a rental payment. I look at that person and think, shoot, we got plenty of, you got plenty of money to cover a mortgage. And there's a program that actually agrees with me. It's called the NACA program, N-A-C-A. The NACA program, at first, I'll be honest, I wasn't in love with it, just because I wasn't sure about the process. It was just, I just didn't know. It was ignorance. However, they look at a person's entire, outside of just your credit score. You're more than just a credit score. They look at what's happening with you as a person. What are your spending habits? Are you spending $1,500 a month in rent every month and you haven't been late for the past 2 years that you've been there? That to me screams somebody who, one, holds value in where they live, right? And two, somebody who needs a second chance. And so with the NACA program, obviously, they don't look at credit score at all. Well, let me not say at all, because they do, but they don't just consider that in and of itself. It's a great program. They no closing costs, no PMI, extremely low rates, right? It's a new way to go about owning a home, building equity, understanding the home buying process, because part of that is you have to put together a budget. You got to put together a budget and say, this is what I'm going to commit to, this is what it is. It's good because it helps you out. They don't wrap anything in there. Okay? Again, be careful. Be careful, all right? And then, again, on that, there's no income restriction or limit. You can make $150,000 or you can make $20,000. They look at you from a complete person, all right? Then lastly, one of the programs that I'm starting to really like, although there are some income limits on that, you have to be at 115% of the area median income Depending on where you stay, it may vary, but for a 4-person household, that's about $77,400. That's the Dallas MAP program, the Mortgage Assistance Program. So they actually have 2 ways you can go about it. If you're buying a home from a community development corporation, a CDC, some of these places out here, they'll give you up to $20,000. If you're buying it from just, a normal builder, from just a normal builder in certain areas of the city that are covered by the program, they'll give you up to $15,000. So that can be used in down payment and closing costs. Okay? So I painted the picture of early 2000s for a reason, because I wanted y'all to understand what they were doing, right? And talked about these programs because, as you can see, they kind of look similar, but there are some very different changes that are happening. Anytime that somebody says they will wrap closing costs or down payment into something, what are you supposed to do? Run. Okay. Far and fast. Okay, and then the last program I want to talk about before I let you guys roll, because I think we're running out of time. The city of Dallas has this pretty cool program that I stumbled on about 2 years ago. Actually about 3, but it kind of made a move. It's called the Dallas Land Bank Program. Anybody familiar with that? Anybody familiar with that? Okay, now, if you're interested in building a house in an area that may need a little bit of work, ain't quite there yet, right? If you're interested in building a house, the city of Dallas is selling lots for $5,000. In order to purchase these lots, you have to have a builder to go down there and purchase them for you. There's a process, but there are lots that are $5,000 that you can go down there and buy, or have your builder buy and build a nice house for you. 115% of the area median income is the max that you can make if you're going to buy those homes, or if you're going to buy those lots and build a house for yourself. But there's nowhere in the city of Dallas that you can. The average house, brand new construction in the city of Dallas, is $477,000, roughly. What was that number? 477, 577, something with some sevens at the end. But they're brand spanking new in the city of Dallas. To get a brand new house under $200,000 in the city of Dallas is really kind of unheard of. To get an existing home in the city of Dallas for under $200,000 that's worth anything is really kind of unheard of at this point. So these are programs that you can take advantage of, because if you use the right builder that charges you a decent price, you can almost have equity in your home as you ride the wave of these increasing values in certain areas. Okay? So I want you guys to be aware of some of these things, be aware of some of these programs, and beware of some of these predatory programs that are rearing their ugly heads back in the market. I'll tell you about one program that I with all my heart, I pray that you run as far as you can if you see a lender like this that comes into our backyard, okay? Program is called the Shared Equity Program. The name alone should really make you run. It's called the Shared Equity Program. So you don't have enough of the down payment, right? And so they have some different laws and things like that where it says you have to have a certain amount of money, right? But from a lender perspective, they're saying, okay, well, we can't lend you this, but what we can do is we can offer you equity. So essentially we become partners in this house. Like, you can live there, you pay back this debt. At the end of this thing, what I get is you pay me back my loan, you pay me back my equity, plus 35% of any additional equity before you pay any expenses. So think about that for a second. Does that really make sense? It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes. Talk to me now. It is crazy. In actuality, what that is the exact same thing as I'm going to lend you this $3,500 for your down payment and this $3,000 for your closing costs, and then you just hopefully this house increases to this point, and if it doesn't, then cool, we still got the house. But if it does, we want that back plus anything else that you get before you pay a realtor, a tax, before you pay anything. So it's really stripping us away from, what that program does is it strips us away from our equity. It strips us away from the wealth that we're supposed to build using real estate as a vehicle. So anyway, the greatest thing that I want you to take away from this whole deal is be careful. There are programs out there that are extremely helpful to get you into a home, to even get you into investing in real estate. However, as these programs become more and more prevalent in our market, just be careful. Do your research. Make sure you have somebody like myself or Scottie Smith & Associates agent that can help you kind of guide through that process and say, all right, look, this may not be it. We may need to go consider somewhere else, okay? So be careful, be careful, be careful. And I want to encourage you guys, we stopped at step 12 today. We got 28 more steps tomorrow. So y'all come out. I have some great information on this deal tomorrow. So that's really all I have. I have one more note, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow, okay? Thank you guys for coming out. Does anybody have any questions? I'm open to questions. Do we have time for questions?
I really just have a comment. I want people, when they're looking at some of the programs, to be mindful of whether it is a grant or if it is a second lien.
Yes.
Sometimes some of these programs can be a second lien, which is attached to your home, and it is forgiven if you stay in the house for X number of years, 3, 5, 7 sometimes. So that's just an add-on to what Scottie was saying relative to some of the programs. I'm not opposed to them, but I just want you to be educated that some of them had that caveat and that provision included that is a second lien.
Yep, that is true and very worthy. That is very true. I think back in the early days, they had City of Irving had one. It was a big amount of money, but they had to stay there for 15 years. But so yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Thank you, Carol.
I'm always getting emails about programs helping teachers with down payments. I was just wondering, did you know of any good?
Yeah, so that's good. So in true form, right? That's in my opinion, that's really just good marketing. There are the Texas State Affordable Housing. They have a program that's specifically set aside for teachers, firefighters, pretty much our service people. And I believe it's 3 or 5%. The other one that I know, comes through my email as well, is the SET program. A lot of times the teachers, get in there, and it's a SET program, the 5% deal. It's really just really good marketing. That's really, it's really just really good marketing. But and the reason why they say for teachers is because they know, the average teacher's salary meets the income threshold. So
you have one question. We still have one question. You raise your hand?
I did, and not thinking of an individual home for myself, but more for investors. Are there programs out there now for that? I know you said the market and the climate is changing. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing that to be the case as well?
Yes, it's more, there's no time than ever before, with the loosening lending requirements to become an investor. You can really get into a home, stated income, no credit, 70% ARV, 80% ARV. They base, some of the income off the income stream, the potential income stream of the property. There's a ton of programs out there. Rates are a little higher, when and we call those non-recourse loans. If they have non-recourse loans, you just have to expect that the rates are higher, 12, 13%. But they're out there. It's easy. I'll put you on a program that I'm working with right now that I think is pretty good.
Let's give it up.